Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Senator, I want to start by replaying this video Manu Raju just highlighted of Sinema and Manchin chatting on the Senate floor. That looks an awful lot like you chatting with them, maybe. What did you all have to say?
Well, Jake, I'm not going to get into the details of that conversation, but Manu just gave a quick overview of what the issues are before us. The most important thing is that we get this bill passed. It is a bold and ambitious bill that will reduce prescription drug prices, cap out-of-pocket costs for millions of Americans, reduce health care costs, pay down the deficit by as much as $300 billion, and make significant progress on combating climate change. That larger framework, I am confident all 50 Democrats will support, and we will get this bill to President Biden's desk.
Yeah, but the issue is that Senator Sinema, for example, does not want to close the carried interest loophole, thereby allowing wealthy hedge fund and private equity managers to keep paying this reduced tax rate on their income instead of the rate that most Americans watching pay. Has she given any substantive reason as to why this loophole should not be closed?
Well, Jake, this is something that I've supported, our closing. Everyone else in our caucus has supported closing, moving the time that you have to hold on assets in order to get this particular treatment from 3 to 5 years. It would raise $14 billion and would help us both pay down the deficit and invest in combating climate change. If Senator Sinema ends up making this one of the critical things that she refuses to support being in the package, we will have to change the scope of the package or find a different way forward.
Okay, so you're willing to get rid of that. But what about the other part that Manu just talked about, having to do with the minimum tax paid for corporations? Pat Toomey was on the show, Senator Toomey was on the show Sunday, and he said the problem with requiring a minimum tax for corporations is that it affects the corporation's ability to invest that money in future manufacturing, which was part of the 2017 Trump tax bill. How do you counteract that argument?
Well, let's be clear. This is a minimum tax that applies to corporations that are bringing in more than $1 billion a year in revenue. And as a simple principle, the idea that there should be a minimum amount of taxes paid by the very wealthiest Americans and the most profitable companies is something our caucus has come together behind. I do think we need to take a hard look at how it might impact competitiveness. You know, Jake, I'm someone who worked in manufacturing for 8 years, and we are just about to go to a bill signing on Tuesday where President Biden will sign into law the last major piece of legislation that we passed here in the Senate with a bipartisan vote, the CHIPS and Science Bill, that does a lot to invest in manufacturing. So I think we have to look at both of these pieces of legislation, the incentives and the investments in manufacturing that come out of the CHIPS and Science Bill that we just passed last week, and any potential impact here in terms of a corporate minimum tax. At the end of the day, Jake, I don't think we should go out, that we should leave Washington for August until we've resolved these issues in our caucus and moved this bill forward.
But bottom line, you've talked to her. We just saw the tape. Do you think that this will happen, that whatever changes she needs will be ones that Democrats are willing to make, and that her asks aren't too much?
Jake, I'm optimistic we will get this bill to President Biden's desk after more than a year of hard work and lots of negotiations. The credit for getting this package done goes to Senator Schumer and to Senators Manchin and Sinema for working out whatever these last few details will have to be. Let me just reinforce how excited I am that we will invest in reducing the costs your average American faces for prescription drugs, for healthcare costs, for energy, and we will make the biggest investment in our history in combating climate. Yes, there's a few details to be worked out in the next few days, but I think we're going to get to President Biden's desk an historic package that Democrats in the Senate will deliver.
This morning, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, Democrat of New York, publicly apologized to President Biden after saying in a primary debate earlier this week that she didn't think Biden was running for re-election. But Maloney's apology was interesting, too. Take a listen.
I probably should. Mr. President, I apologize. I want you to run. I happen to think you won't be running, but when you run, or if you run, I will be there 100%. You have deserved it. You are a great president, and thank you for everything you've done for my state and all the states and all the cities in America. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're still saying there, I'm sure you caught it, I happen to think you won't be running. Is it 100% that President Biden's going to run for re-election?
When we've talked about it, President Biden has said to me that he intends to run for re-election, but frankly, he is focused on getting these important pieces of legislation signed into law, delivering relief for the American people now. The price of gas in my home state, our home state of Delaware, has gone down week after week after week for 5 weeks now. It's below $4 at many gas stations in my home state. And I know that the president is concerned about getting this bill to his desk that'll provide relief in terms of the costs at the prescription drug counter, the grocery store, or for energy. So I don't think he, by a long shot, is done making a difference for the American people. In the last few weeks, he's also made a huge difference on the world stage. We here in the Senate just ratified adding Finland and Sweden to NATO, which makes us safer and stronger as a country, reduces the risk that Americans will have to go fight to defend our European allies in NATO. President Biden has a significant record of accomplishment as president, and I appreciate the Congresswoman recognizing that. Whether or not he will be running in 2024, I think will depend on a lot of things between here and then, but I know it's his intention to run for re-election.
And that vote was 95-1 with Senator
Yes.
Josh Hawley, the one person voting against letting Sweden and Finland into NATO.
That's right. It was an overwhelming vote. I'm not sure why Senator Hawley would stand out as the one opposed, but the 95 of us, I think it was, who voted in favor show the strength and the bipartisanship behind NATO, the most successful alliance, I think, in modern history, certainly that we've ever been a part of. It's produced stability and security in Europe. And after Russia's brutal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, President Biden masterfully pulled together the Western Alliance, are both NATO allies and EU partners. And this is a strategic defeat for Putin, a critical defeat for his goal of weakening and dividing NATO.
All right, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, thank you so much. Republican
Thank you, Jay.
Congresswoman and Vice Chair